After the earthquake struck, my husband embraced his first love, Zelda Baxter, at the entrance of our apartment complex, both in tears. Meanwhile, I descended 20 floors step by step, carrying the 3 cats Zelda had left behind years ago. He told me he was about to take the lift, but the next moment he rushed out of the building towards the flower shop at the complex entrance, which Zelda owned. Zelda has a heart condition, please be understanding, my husband said, frowning at me. Thank you for taking care of my cats, Amelia. Zelda smiled sweetly from his arms. Later, when a hurricane hit, the city was submerged overnight by torrential rain, turning our apartment complex into an isolated island. The man brought Zelda with him, climbing up to the 20th floor step by step, begging me to open the door. I started a video call, letting them watch as one of the cats batted the car keys tied to a cat toy into the floodwaters below. I have social anxiety and I need to care for the cats, I said. Please be understanding. Ding, this novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Late at night, the swaying high-rise finally regained its calm. The courtyard below was filled with people, their faces still showing signs of shock. That was terrifying. How did an earthquake suddenly hit? It went on for so long. I ran from the 7th floor to the ground floor and it still hadn't stopped. Amidst the commotion, I slowly emerged from the stairwell, placing the cat carriers I was holding on the ground. My heart was racing and I felt nauseous with nerves. I bent over, gasping for air. As I looked up, I saw Gary and Zelda standing under the courtyard lamppost, locked in a tight embrace. The harsh light illuminated Zelda's slightly trembling shoulders as Gary held her. His brow furrowed as he whispered words of comfort. It had taken me 6.5 minutes to walk down from the 20th floor, step by step, carrying our 3 cats. Gary had told me on the phone that he was about to get in the lift. Yet here he was at the entrance of the complex, comforting Zelda without so much as a call to me. Perhaps my gaze was too intense, for Gary looked up and finally met my eyes. He hesitated for a moment, loosening his grip slightly but then tightened it again. Zelda has a heart condition, he said to me, his expression composed. The earthquake came so suddenly, it must have frightened her. Please try to understand. Hearing this, Zelda lifted her head from Gary's embrace and smiled at me. Thank you for looking after my cats, Amelia. Of course, these 3 cats I was holding were left behind when she and Gary had lived together. After the breakup, she didn't even want the cats, and Gary had suggested releasing them into the wild. It was only because I couldn't bear the thought that I agreed to help care for them. Suddenly I found it all laughable. Perhaps it's only in matters of life and death that one can clearly see how rotten a person's heart truly is. I was grateful for this earthquake. It had given me a harsh wake-up call, finally bringing me to my senses. I turned around and without hesitation dialed 999. The ambulance quickly drove into the complex and the paramedic hurriedly asked who's having the heart attack. I raised my hand and pointed at Zelda here. He has a heart condition. No, it's not me. I didn't call an ambulance. Zelda quickly denied. Weren't you the one who said you had a heart condition and were frightened by the earthquake? I asked coldly. Now you're suddenly fine. Oh, I do have one. Zelda was at a loss for words, unable to confirm or deny, but her complexion was rosy, not at all like someone suffering from heart problems. The paramedic, tired of the nonsense, gave her a quick check and then berated her. There's no sign of any heart condition. We've just had an earthquake. Medical resources are stretched thin. Can you please not deliberately hinder our work? If anything, that kind lady who called us for you looks a bit pale. He might be the one needing help. What are you playing at? Zelda's face turned from red to white in an instant. As the onlookers around began to point and whisper, it was Gary who stepped forward, politely seeing off the medical staff and then consoling Zelda. I ignored them, feeling refreshed as I returned home. On the way, I even met the handsome young man who runs the pet shop downstairs, who kindly checked on the cat's condition. I entered my flat and had just let the cats out of their carriers when I heard the lift arrive. I quickly locked the door and immediately changed the passcode. Amelia, what are you doing? Gary frantically knocked on the door. Nothing much, I calmly replied from behind the door. You weren't home before the earthquake, so don't ever come back. What nonsense are you talking? Gary laughed bitterly outside the door. I've explained to you Zelda has a heart condition and I was closer to her. Gary, your mouth is like the flip-top bin downstairs. It stinks as soon as you open it. Do I need to remind you that I bought this house? Only my name is on the deed and we're not even married yet. After we started dating, Gary repeatedly promised me that he would have no further contact with his old flame. Yet a month after I bought this house, Zelda opened a flower shop right at the entrance of our estate. Now I'm incredibly grateful that he always found excuses to delay our marriage. Grateful that only my name is on the property deed. I only regret the time and money I wasted on him. For the sake of his career development, how much more than just this house have I given him? Gary fell silent for a moment outside the door but eventually sighed and said, "Stop this. I've worked all day and I'm exhausted. I was too impulsive this time. It's my fault. Will you open the door so I can apologize?" Impulsive, even in the face of a life-and-death natural disaster like an earthquake. He could so casually explain away his behavior with the word impulsive. I was truly blind to have fallen for such a man. I no longer paid attention to his various performances outside the door, but instead sat back down on the sofa, petting the cat with one hand and pouring myself a glass of juice with the other. While Gary was talking himself hoarse outside, the property management arrived with security. "Sir, Miss Jones, the owner of this flat, has just shown us the property deed. Please do not disturb the resident and leave immediately or she will call the police." "I'm her husband. Why should I leave?" Gary shouted. "Then may we see your marriage certificate, please?" Gary was suddenly at a loss for words, stammering for a while until the property manager said that if he didn't leave, they would have to use some forceful measures to ensure the resident's safety. He finally compromised, saying he would leave after speaking to me one last time. I sent a message to the property management telling them they could go back to rest, then slowly walked to the door. "Amelia, I think we'd both need to calm down," he said, pretending to be nonchalant. "Let's talk properly tomorrow." "No need." I decided on the spot. "I'm perfectly calm now. Mr. Lockett feels unsettled. Why don't you go calm down with your lover?" Gary's face darkened and he left without another word. I saw him standing in front of the lift, waiting for a long time, but the doors never opened. Suddenly, both Gary's phone and mine rang. The property management had just sent a notice in the WhatsApp group. Due to the impact of the earthquake, the estate will be inspecting and repairing the lift facilities. The lifts will be temporarily out of service. We apologize for any inconvenience caused to the residents. It was late at night and few people would be going downstairs. Except for Gary. He angrily punched the wall and slammed the stairwell door shut. But after a few steps I heard a loud crash, the sound of someone tripping and falling down the stairs. I remembered that when I was stuffing my ragdoll cat Snowball into her carrier, she had a smooth bell in her mouth that fell out of a gap in the carrier. After just a few steps down the stairs, Snowball was now leaning against my knee, nuzzling my hand. I listened to her purring, accompanied by the man's cries of pain, and pleasantly stroked her head. "Good girl, you deserve an extra treat." The next morning after breakfast, I went downstairs to restock cat treats for my felines. However, before I could reach the pet shop, Zelda intercepted me at the entrance of the flower shop. "Amelia," she pleaded, grabbing my arm pitifully. "Yesterday was my fault. Please don't blame Gary. There's really nothing between us. When the earthquake happened I was scared too. He only came to find me because my shop was closer to him. You live on the 20th floor. If it had been a major quake it could have cost 2 lives. She bit her lower lip, examining my expression with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world's injustice. In the face of natural disasters, everyone seeks safety. By pressuring him like this and letting him injure his leg as revenge, you're only hurting the relationship between you two. Well, in just a few words she turned white into black, making me out to be the unreasonable woman using emotional blackmail. It was a busy morning with many ladies out shopping for groceries. Several nosy ones stood nearby, listening in. There was even a middle-aged man who started a live stream eager for drama. With the earthquake just over, 2 women quarreling over which one a man chose to save first. It sounded like clickbait material. "Miss, don't be too hard on the lady," an older woman holding her grandson chimed in with a toothy grin. Nobody expected the earthquake. We were all scared stiff. Who could think straight about who to save? Take me for instance. I've got a grandson and a granddaughter, but I grabbed my grandson and ran. People always choose the one they treasure most. I glanced at the chubby 6-year-old boy in her arms and smiled coolly. Your precious grandson is the terror of the neighborhood. He bullies other children, lifts girls' skirts, and throws stones at stray cats. Everyone avoids him like the plague. I hear he's been kicked out of 3 nurseries already, and you haven't found the next one yet. Only you could see such a little monster as a treasure. And you, I turned back to Zelda calmly. Gary lives in my flat and was dating me, yet he didn't bother to call me once during the entire earthquake. Instead he was down here canoodling with you. It's quite impressive how you 2 cheaters can make your affair sound so pure and innocent. You're truly a perfect match. Don't worry, I've already dumped him. Such rubbish is better suited for a willing rubbish man like you. My home isn't a recycling center." Zelda was completely blindsided by how sharp-tongued I'd become overnight. Just a few days ago I was still buying flowers with Gary at her shop, enduring her snide remarks. So it was cheating? I thought they were strangers. That makes the shop owner the other woman, doesn't it? To think I bought flowers for my boyfriend from her shop. How unlucky. The mood of the crowd shifted suddenly. Arthur Cornish, the owner of the pet shop next door, had emerged at some point and was now adding fuel to the fire with a smile. I can vouch for this lady. Yesterday she walked down from the 20th floor step by step, carrying their 3 cats. That shows she's a kind-hearted person. I know. I often see her feeding stray cats in the neighborhood. A little girl chimed in. Not like Billy, who's always hitting kittens. He's a big meanie. Seeing another argument about to break out, I couldn't be bothered to waste more words with these people. I turned and entered the pet shop. Cornish, thank you for earlier. Arthur smiled as he bagged up the cat treats and freeze-dried food I'd bought. He looked at me earnestly and said, because I know you're a good person. Being called a good person by a handsome bloke still felt nice. I looked into his eyes and suddenly had an idea. There's a small favor I might need to ask of you, Mr. Cornish. Would you be willing? Of course, he replied smoothly before I could even specify the favor. I'd be delighted to help. The next day as I was leaving work, I received a call from my friend. Amelia, have you and Gary broken up? She asked. I dumped him unilaterally. It wasn't a mutual breakup. I corrected her choice of words. I know. My friend cleared her throat and lowered her voice. I've seen your PowerPoint presentation. It's really well done. Thanks for the compliment, I said, putting down the blueprints in my hand. They say stories are inspired by real life. Every word in that presentation is based on Gary's true cases, which is why it's so compelling. After returning home yesterday, I had created a PowerPoint presentation with dozens of slides. It detailed Gary's financial transactions with me over the past few years, as well as the network of contacts I had helped him build. All the information was laid out on the pages, clear and easy to read. Of course, I couldn't leave out his little affair with Zelda, complete with a CCTV clip of him running from the lift to the flower shop and embracing her in tears. Gary had always portrayed himself at work as a self-made man with a supportive wife, living in perfect marital bliss without any conflicts. Back when we were dating, I was blinded by love. To maintain his image, I played along, helping to build up his persona. Now it's as if an earthquake has shaken the cobwebs from my mind. I no longer need to keep up this charade with him. Amelia, to be honest, I've wanted to say for a while that it was only a matter of time before you broke up, given how unappreciative he was of everything you did for him, my friend said cautiously. But I'm a bit surprised at how quickly and cleanly you've managed to end it. I leaned back on the sofa, took a deep breath and let my thoughts wander. The straw that breaks the camel's back is never just a single piece of straw, but years of accumulated disappointment. Countless times of coming home late, countless times of neglecting me, and even buying flowers for our anniversary from his old flame shop, asking her to write happy anniversary, darling, on the card. Each time I thought about ending it all, but I always softened at his explanations and apologies for giving him time and time again. It took an earthquake for me to finally see clearly. Even in the face of life and death, he would unhesitatingly choose someone else. How could I expect any better in the small matters of daily life? Why should I hang on to a crooked tree? I'm tired. I made the PowerPoint, converted it to a QR code and had it printed on cards. Then I asked Arthur to order a large flower arrangement from Zelda's shop to be delivered to Gary's office. The show is about to begin. The QR code on the flower basket was scanned and quickly shared in the company's WhatsApp group. Gary Lockett had been on sick leave for the past couple of days due to a leg injury, so he couldn't stop it immediately. By the time he saw the message, everyone in the company had a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and had already read all about his gossip. Gary called me over a dozen times, but I ignored all his calls. After dinner, I went downstairs for a walk. As I passed by the flower shop, I happened to overhear an argument. Didn't you even check the name before ordering the flower basket, letting Amelia send it to the company to humiliate me? Gary's face was dark with anger. It was the first time I'd seen him speak to Zelda in such a furious tone. Indeed, men always love themselves the most. What are women compared to their own dignity? I didn't know it was her who ordered it. The voice on the phone was clearly male. Zelda kept waving her hands in fear, tears welling up in her eyes. I chuckled, not bothering to watch the drama of a scumbag losing his cool. I casually opened the weather forecast app. Apparently, a storm was about to make landfall. No wonder it felt so windy tonight. I went to the corner shop early to buy some food and water, planning to stock up a bit each time I went downstairs just in case. Unexpectedly, as soon as I stepped out of the lift, I saw a woman standing at my door, glaring at me indignantly. Amelia, my brother has injured his leg and you're not at home taking care of him. You won't even let him in. Is this how a wife should behave? If it weren't for the last shred of morality stopping me, I would have opened the bottle of water in my hand and poured it over her head. I gave her a cold look, pushed her aside and opened the door. Now I'm his wife again? I thought I wasn't good enough for your brother. She was momentarily speechless but still managed to squeeze in just as I was about to close the door. Even if you're not legally married, you've been living together for over 2 years. Doesn't that count as a relationship? How can you treat my brother like this? He works day and night for this home, and not only do you not appreciate him, but you give him the cold shoulder. For a moment, Gary's sister's face bizarrely overlapped with the face of that overly macho lad's grandmother from this morning. No matter if you're a lady, you've offended a gentleman. Isn't he working day and night because he's not capable enough? I strolled leisurely to the entryway, returning the stray cat to her room. If your brother were as wealthy as me, he wouldn't need to work so hard, would he? Do I need to remind you that not a single brick in this flat was paid for by your brother? I snatched the water glass she was about to drink from and poured it into the potted plant in the living room. A kept man who's been living off others for too long starts to think he cooked the meals himself. He even has the audacity to come and try to extort medical expenses from me. You're not even worthy of drinking the water in my home. Get out of here as soon as possible. Gary's sister was furious. She stood up wanting to hit me, but constrained by the fact that not a single word I said was false, she could only argue weakly. No wonder you can't keep a man with such a poisonous tongue. Since you've made things so clear, don't expect to get a penny from my brother from now on. Let this flat be for a woman no one wants like you. I'll be waiting to see you cry. She stormed out, slamming the door violently as she left. Money. Gary wouldn't even be a department manager at the company if it weren't for the path I paved for him. How else could he earn any money? Besides, a man like Gary is something valuable. It feels less worthy than the olive and pork heart soup I'm planning to make for lunch. I cleaned up the rubbish in the flat and went downstairs in my slippers. The weather wasn't cooperating. It suddenly started raining, and quite heavily at that. Fortunately, I had brought a large umbrella, which was barely enough to not hinder my walking. I even thought about going to the supermarket next door after disposing of the rubbish. However, before I had taken more than a few steps, I saw Gary's sister, Delia, running towards me, saying she had forgotten her umbrella at my place and asking me to go up and get it for her. I let go of my hand, dropping the black plastic bag into the bin, and said, "I'm sorry, but I just saw that umbrella and thought you didn't want it anymore. So I threw it away with the rubbish." Delia was so angry she stamped her feet. But not wanting to rummage through the bin and getting soaked by the rain, she had to run into the flower shop next door. After a while, I saw Zelda rush out and run to the pet shop next door to borrow an umbrella. Delia soon came out arm in arm with Zelda, affectionately walking out and mocking me as I stood under the eaves. No wonder my brother fell in love with someone else. When a person's heart is too wicked, they end up with nothing. I was wondering why she was introducing herself when I saw her open the umbrella and walk proudly into the rain. However, after just a few steps, the umbrella suddenly collapsed, turning into a pile of tattered fabric. The rain suddenly intensified, drenching her into a uniquely shaped drowned rat. Arthur came out of the shop, warmly inviting me in to take shelter from the rain, and browse new cat products while apologizing to Zelda and Delia with great remorse. "I'm terribly sorry. The cats in the shop were naughty and chewed up the umbrella. You two lovely ladies with beautiful hearts surely won't hold it against the little kitties, will you?" The storm had passed, but instead of wind, it brought a once-in-a-century downpour. I hadn't slept all night, listening to the relentless rain, my heart racing with unease. When I got up around 5 as expected, the entire area had lost power and water. Looking down from my flat, I could see the water had already reached the first floor. The city I lived in rarely experienced flooding, but the rapid rise in water levels this time indicated an extremely severe disaster. Fortunately, I had prepared in advance, stocking up on enough water and food, so I wasn't in dire straits yet. The property management had notified residents via WhatsApp not to leave their homes. They had contacted rescue teams to prepare lifeboats for evacuating residents on lower floors. I stayed at home just after sending a message to out-of-town partners about work delays. An unknown number called. I hesitated but pressed the answer button. Gary Lockett's voice came through instantly. "Amelia, are you at home?" My mood plummeted. Indeed, one should never answer unknown calls. If it's not a scam, it might be your persistent dead ex. Zelda got stuck in the rain last night and couldn't get home. Now the whole flower shop is flooded. We're coming up. Open the door. We'll leave once the water recedes. I remained silent for a while. Gary grew anxious on the other end, shouting, "Did you hear me? Are you even home? If not, at least give me the spare car key you have. I'll take her myself." "Oh," I replied with one word and hung up. I went to the balcony and tied the car key to a cat toy. Snowball woke up and came over. I fed her a can of food, watching her eat slowly, only then hearing knocking at the door. "Amelia, open up," Gary called out breathlessly. "I know you're in there." Through the video intercom I saw him supporting Zelda. She looked out of breath too, leaning against the wall, her face pained. Fair enough. With the lift out of order, they had to climb all the way to the 20th floor. I didn't answer his calls but instead made a video call to him. When he answered, I placed the phone on the table and started playing with Snowball using the cat toy. Seeing this, Gary grew increasingly agitated on the other end, yelling, "Amelia, stop joking around. Zelda's not well. This is a matter of life and death. Please, I'm begging you. Let us in, will you? Snowball. Look here." I raised the cat toy. Snowball leapt up, her paw swatting at it, sending the car key flying in a graceful arc. Then, precisely through a small gap in the balcony window, it fell out. "Well done." I patted her head. "Mummy will send you to play football tomorrow, Amelia." Gary's face on the video contorted with anger as he started cursing at me. "You won't have the car key or the house key." I smiled slightly at the perfect couple, showing them my chat with security. "The only thing you can do now is get out of my house." Soon, someone rushed up the stairs outside, demanding to know why Gary was causing a disturbance in front of my door. "I'm her boyfriend and we're stuck here because of the storm. We just want to stay at her place for a while." "Is that not allowed?" Gary shouted. "I don't know them." I maintained contact with the property management via WhatsApp. "They're causing trouble, suddenly appearing at my doorstep. How could I possibly let strangers in?" "Kate, I remember you. You're that bloke who bothered Miss Jones before." The security guard frowned, turning to Zelda beside him and scolded. "Bringing your mistress to harass your ex after a breakup. Have you no shame as a man? Get out of here. We've got enough on our plate without dealing with your nonsense." Zelda's face turned ashen, biting her lower lip in silence. Gary retorted. "The streets below are flooded. We're trapped here. Where else can we go? We offered to take you to the shelter earlier, but you insisted you had friends here. What can we do now? The boats have all left. You'll have to wait in the hallway until another boat comes." The group hurriedly tossed them some bottled water, bread, and blankets before heading back downstairs. The rain poured harder and the temperature dropped further. Through the security camera, I watched Zelda shivering in her dress and Gary soaked to the bone. I cheerfully prepared my lunch. The sound of the stew bubbling filled the air, its aroma seeping through the door cracks. Meanwhile, Gary tried knocking on doors upstairs and downstairs, hoping to find a kind soul to shelter them temporarily. Unfortunately, it was holiday season and many had gone home to visit family. Those left in their flats were mostly elderly, short on supplies themselves and unwilling to open their doors. After bustling about all morning, Gary, on the verge of exhaustion, had no choice but to sit in the hallway. I finished enjoying my stew and was about to clean up when I suddenly heard Zelda's voice breaking down outside. "I don't want to stay here. I want to leave now. Just wait a bit longer. Someone will come to take us to the shelter soon." "I don't want to go to any shelter," she screamed, pulling out her phone and dialing a number. "Hello bro, where are you? Can you come pick me up? I'm so scared." In an instant both Gary and I fell silent. That voice. It was clearly not addressing a biological brother. So it wasn't just Gary who was two-timing but her as well. Indeed, what a perfect match they made, two peas in a pod. "Zelda, you have another man." Gary exploded, shouting at her. "What other man? Were you ever really with me?" Zelda challenged him, throwing caution to the wind. "Isn't your real girlfriend the one inside that flat?" As the argument escalated, I listened with growing concern. I hope they don't come to blows. I'd hate for someone to die on my doorstep. Amidst the commotion, there was another knock on my door. "Gary, when will you give it a rest?" I grumbled as I approached the door, but then I heard Arthur's voice. "Miss Jones, it's me." Through the peephole, I saw him holding a large bag, his face slightly flushed, intently looking at the security camera. "I was worried you might not have enough supplies, so I brought you some. Don't you live in the next building? How did you get here?" I asked. "I hitched a ride on a rescue boat. They were distributing supplies to residents and I volunteered to help deliver them. That's how they agreed to bring me to your building. I climbed up floor by floor, so I'm a bit tired. Won't you let me in for a glass of water?" For some reason, through the security camera, Arthur suddenly transformed into a big tail-wagging dog in my mind, proud yet pitiful as he begged me to open the door. Although I had enough supplies at home, I still unlocked the door and welcomed him in. Through the crack in the door, I saw that Zelda had left the hallway, leaving only Gary, who stared at us in disbelief, his eyes filled with anger. I gave him an expressionless look and then, over Arthur's shoulder, I slammed the door shut with a bang. The hurricane had devastated the city, and it took a full month of reconstruction before people's lives gradually returned to normal. However, the trees lining the streets were now just bare saplings, looking rather pitiful. Zelda's flower shop reopened after the torrential rains subsided, but business plummeted. Everyone in the neighborhood knew about her story with Gary, and they all looked at her strangely. Of course, this was thanks to the vivid storytelling skills of the security guard downstairs, who had a wealth of experience in spinning tales. "Did you hear? Gary got sacked today." My friend called me excitedly to share this news while I was on my way to pick up the cow-cat from the pet shop after his bath. According to her, since returning to work after the hurricane, he had become distracted and often made mistakes, which had already displeased his superiors. A week ago, at the signing ceremony for an important collaboration project, there was a major problem with the flower arrangements Gary was responsible for ordering. The delivered flower baskets contained many withered and diseased flowers. Insects crawled out, frightening many people at the event. Apparently he ordered them from that mistress of his, my friend told me. I couldn't help but marvel at Gary's devotion. Even though his lost love was with another man, he still bought flowers from her shop. Was this devotion or just stupidity? Though the most likely explanation was that he had delegated the task to a subordinate, who always bought flowers from Zelda's shop, unaware of their history and naturally ordered as usual. The deal fell through and so did he. I heard he even went to that flower shop and caused a scene, trashing the place. I stopped in my tracks, looking towards the tightly shut doors of the summer flower shop. No wonder everyone's saying the flower shop went out of business. But how come no one told me about the shop being trashed? What a shame. I was lamenting missing out on a good dog-eat-dog show when, just as I ended the call with my friend, I saw Gary standing in front of me. He looked haggard as he said to me, "Amelia, I'm sorry." Goosebumps broke out all over my body and I immediately tried to walk around him, but he blocked my path again. "I've checked everything," he said, his expression remorseful and his eyes filled with deep regret. "Zelda never had a heart condition. She's been lying to me all along. I misjudged her. I've wronged you. I didn't know how to cherish what I had." He grabbed my hand, pleading earnestly. "Can you give me another chance to make it up to you properly?" I barely restrained the urge to slap him and asked, "In your mind, am I some kind of cheap person?" His face paled and he tried to explain, but I cut him off immediately. "It's not me you want to cherish. It's my money, isn't it?" I yanked my hand away. "I don't date rubbish. You'd better find a bin that can accommodate you like Zelda. If you appear in front of me one more time, I'll report you for harassment." I walked up the steps to the pet shop, where Arthur was holding the cat and smiling at me brilliantly. "Lockett says he's found out that Miss Baxter doesn't have a heart condition. But did he not discover that Miss Jones is the one who actually has a heart problem?" Arthur's gaze shifted to Gary. Gary's whole body shook as he looked at me in disbelief. On the day of the earthquake, even the paramedics could see her lips were blue and her heart was racing. "But you didn't notice," Arthur continued. "So you're simply not qualified to be her partner." Gary stood at the bottom of the stairs, head bowed, hands trembling, his expression hidden from view. I took the cat from Arthur's hands and said to him, "Don't waste your breath on him." Sco. Arthur and I entered the pet shop one after the other. A moment later, through the window, I saw Gary walk away looking lost and dejected. "Why did you even bother talking to him?" I scratched my head uncomfortably. "He might as well be dead to me. Because I can't stand it. You're so wonderful and he once had you, but he didn't cherish you at all." I looked up to see his expression change, now gazing at me with a hint of pity. "If it bothers you, I won't mention it again." Well, he's still quite the smooth talker. "It doesn't bother me," I shook my head. The cow cat in my arms stretched comfortably, purring contentedly. "The cat still likes you a lot. When I try to bathe her at home, it's like trying to wrestle a pig." Arthur looked at me, his gaze soft yet determined, and said quietly, "What about you?" I was taken aback, taking a moment to realize what he meant. It was on an afternoon like this, giving the cats a bath, when he asked if he could pursue me after learning about my breakup with Gary. Although men like Gary are like chewing gum accidentally stepped on in the street. Troublesome, but nothing left once washed off. I had just extracted myself from a relationship that lasted several years. Finding a genuinely sincere new boyfriend right away seemed a bit challenging. Arthur said he had fallen for me the first time I brought the cat to the shop, but his heart shattered when he saw Gary waiting for me at the door. The cheeky lad. Arthur is a few years younger than me, and dating a younger man is uncharted territory for me, so I had never responded to his confessions, but I didn't deliberately avoid his feelings either. Fortunately, he's a person with great tact and patience, making our interactions comfortable for both of us. Although I hesitated, I went with the flow, gradually getting to know him better. 3 months later, I saw Zelda in the local news. She had been reported and detained for animal cruelty. In fact, she never liked cats and was even a psychopath with a penchant for abusing them. She had initially kept those 3 cats, intending to abuse them when they grew up. But after breaking up with Gary, she hated the house and its inhabitants, abandoning the cats along with everything else. Coincidentally, the person who reported her turned out to be the little girl who had spoken up for me that day. She and her classmate discovered cat fur and blood stains under a flower vase when they went to buy flowers at Zelda's newly opened summer flower shop after school. "So you lot should count yourselves lucky to have me as your stepmom. Otherwise, you'd have been skinned alive by now." I sat on the bed, lecturing the 3 cats staring at each other on the floor. However, the cats clearly had no intention of letting their mom rest easy. One weekend night, one cat suddenly started vomiting non-stop, frightening me into calling Arthur to come over and check on him. Although Arthur is a pet shop owner, he used to be a proper veterinarian. With one injection, the little cat's condition improved significantly. I suspected the cat might have eaten something he shouldn't have while rummaging through the newly bought rubbish bin today. In the dead of night, to prevent the cat's condition from relapsing, I agreed to Arthur's suggestion to let him sleep in the guest room for the night and leave in the morning. I had pulled an all-nighter for work yesterday, and tonight I was woken up by the cat scare. So when I got back to bed, I fell asleep immediately, almost like passing out. However, as I slept, amidst the shaking, I heard urgent knocking on the door. For months after the hurricane, an earthquake once again struck the city's night. Bleary-eyed, I saw Arthur rush and hang a cat carrier on my shoulder, then tuck me under his arm and sprint out. He had one cat carrier on his back, one in his left hand, and his right hand holding mine as we rapidly descended the stairs. This earthquake was clearly more violent than the last one. In my gradually clearing consciousness, I thought that if the building collapsed now, I would be buried along with him and the 3 cats. But in the end, just as the shaking stopped, we made it to the ground floor stairwell. Just like a few months ago, there were signs of life everywhere under the building, with everyone wearing expressions of having narrowly escaped death. I was also panting, my heart racing. The difference was that Arthur never let go of my hand, not even for a moment. Our palms were both sweaty. Arthur held my hand, anxiously asking if I was all right, if my heart felt uncomfortable. I wanted to say something, but I held back. I examined our state, wearing pajamas, hair disheveled, a complete mess. It did seem a bit inappropriate. What did you say? Arthur saw my lips move slightly and my absent-minded look, and got scared enough to call for an ambulance. Amidst my rapidly beating heart, I cast aside all unnecessary thoughts and held his hand. I said, "I can give you an answer now.